time for us to talk all things skin transformation. Now, while the focal point will be looking at the realities of the transition from premenopause to postmenopause. Men, I want you to buckle up because you too are going to be a part of this conversation. Now, as women journey from premenopause to postmenopause, their largest organ, the skin, undergoes profound transformations. With just 5 years postmenopause, up to 30% of the dermal collagen can be lost, leading to visible lining, sagging, and wrinkling. Meanwhile, 64% report dry skin, 56% experience itching, 30% see acne, and 22% feel crawling sensations. These shifts demand personalized skin strategies because routine one-size-fits-all just won't do it for us anymore. Now, in this conversation, Dr. Judey Pretorius, the founder of Biomedical Emporium International and a biomedical scientist, brings her expertise to unravel how skincare must evolve to match changing hormones, genetics, skin types, lifestyle, and nutrition. She joins us on the line this evening. Dr. Judey, welcome to African Diaries.
Good evening, and good evening to everybody listening.
Dr. Judey, perhaps ours is to first interrogate this transitional space we find ourselves in, right? And if you could do us the courtesy of explaining the cycles for both men and women, from the teen acne and the adolescence and all the skin issues that come, all the way through to menopause. Walk us through the different stages of transformation that we see in our skin for both men and women.
Well, it's true, we go through what we call a life metamorphosis. And the issue with life metamorphosis is that, we all always refer to the fact that, we want the skin of that of a baby, because a baby's skin, the contours are perfectly in place, and the skin elasticity is absolutely perfectly in place. The densification of the skin is in place. The lack of enlarged pores is absolutely missing. So we really want to, get to a point where we want the skin of a baby. But then we hit puberty and adrenal glands start to play a role. And all of a sudden, with men, testosterone plays a role, and with puberty, with the girls, estrogen and progesterone plays a role. And elevated levels of progesterone can actually cause, sebum production, which is oiliness on the skin. And with men, the same with the testosterone. And that's why many teenagers struggle with teenage and puberty acne. But then later in life, when females get pregnant, for instance, they also struggle with all sorts of pregnancy concerns with regards to the skin. So the first thing that comes to mind with a pregnant woman is, of course, stretch marks, because now you're pregnant, the skin has to stretch, and stretch marks now play a much more profound and defined role. But not only that, many ladies, when they're pregnant, struggle with a different type of concern, and that's called pregnancy mask or melasma. And this is when ladies struggle with pigmentation on the face. But they don't only get pigmentation on the face, they get it in the neck areas, and they even get the brown line on the tummy, which is known as the linea nigra line. So pigmentation is a big concern. And then perhaps a pregnant lady never experienced any concerns with teenage acne, but now all of a sudden when she's pregnant, she can struggle with pregnancy acne or even sensitive skin, which is also known as pregnancy dermatitis. But then we get to the big one that, thank goodness, we are on the same page and we are talking about it so much more, and that is menopause. And menopause, sometimes we talk about certain symptoms of menopause a lot. We talk about hot flushes. We talk about lack of sleep. We talk about, mood swings. but we never really talk about the in-depth things that happen to the human skin when a lady goes through menopause, purely because of the fact that there's a decline in estrogen, there's a decline in progesterone, and there's even a little bit of a decline with females in testosterone. And all of these hormones play such a huge role in um, in the health of human skin. And earlier on, you said, Dr. Judy, tell me about the effect that hormones and so forth have on both men and women. And I would say men are definitely affected, but I think when it comes to all of these life cycles and changes, perhaps women are affected more. And the additional components that women have to face in terms of the health of their skin is when they are pregnant and then later in life when they go through menopause as well.
Dr. Judy, I want to talk about what or how we can gauge what will happen to our skin, because it almost feels like it's this random entropy centered kind of experience. You gave an example to say that a woman who has never experienced acne during her adolescent stage will then see a melasma during pregnancy, whereas other women glow from their skin to their hair. They almost look like angels. And so, what do we have a criteria that we can use to gauge potentially this might happen to me? Maybe this can be found in our nutrition and our genetics. Do we have anything that can lead us to understand what we can expect in these different stages?
Well, I would definitely say from a genetic point of view, the first point would definitely be go and have a look at how your mother experienced pregnancy, or even your grandmom experienced pregnancy and or menopause, because that will also be a good indication to see how you're going to experience it. But I mean, many females will tell you when they were pregnant with more than, if they've gone through more than one pregnancy, that no one pregnancy is exactly the same. And it's usually quite surprising for many individuals that, they anticipate that they're not going to have any skin concerns or issues, but then ultimately they have to deal with something that they really did not expect. And it's quite surprising. And it's true that, number one, your overall systemic health plays a role. So usually when a female is perhaps pregnant in her 20s or even early 30s, then it's as if her body really can adapt to certain, how can I say, adjustments and let's call it subtle trauma, like being pregnant, for instance, a little bit better when a female, is pregnant after 35, and the type of skin concerns that one should have. But there are things, let's call it the environmental extremities, that really play a huge role in how we respond to things that can have an impact on our skin, and also how our hormones are going to fluctuate. For instance, some of the environmental extremities is food that we eat, diet. Some of us really try to pursue a healthy diet, but these days food are so genetically manipulated. It goes through quite, how can I say, a mass production. And because certain food stuff, even though it appears healthy on the packets and labels and so forth, really go through mass production. And with mass production comes certain preservative systems and so forth, and preservatives that not necessarily that healthy for our bodies. And that can play a huge role in how our skin adapts, and how we also, go through certain hormonal changes. And many ladies with the first pregnancy, they will have a good pregnancy, no skin concerns. They'll typically have the glow, especially in the first trimester. But then you're looking at the second pregnancy, they'll probably have a glow in the first trimester, but now all of a sudden they will struggle with acne. Not only acne on the face, but acne on the chest area, and even acne on the back, and which we also refer to as backne. So even when I come back to menopause as well, we can bring the line straight through to menopause. I can typically say to you, listen, if I had a look at the way my grandmother experienced menopause and then my mother experienced menopause, they actually handle it quite well. So I anticipate theoretically when I go through menopause, I'm not really going to experience that dramatic changes. But now the big thing is, what were my grandmother and what were my mother exposed to in terms of the environment? What were some of the foods and lifestyle components that they were used to in comparison to what I used to? And I would say it is definitely a little bit harder for females these days, purely because of the fact that we have more pressures, we have more stressors that work on us. We have to keep so many things in the air and have to take care of so many people. And it's not just that we have to take care of the household, but these days many females have to work. So there's so many stressors on females, and all of these external components play a huge role in how do our bodies experience things like pregnancy and menopause. And it's harsh. It can be quite tough.
Dr. Judy, I want to gauge your thoughts on Dr. Caroline Leaf's theory that fairly 2 to 25% of our genetic disposition contributes to who we become. Do you believe that, or do you think there's more of a percentage that plays a line in what it is or who it is we become physically on this planet?
I genetically, it definitely, I agree with that, but I also believe that our the environment where we're in and the people we surround us with and so forth, um, are also carries a lot of weight, quite a significant amount of weight. And if I say environment, I physically also mean geographically where you live. You know, uh, in Gauteng, for instance, if we just look at the pollution in Gauteng and we go measure some of the polluting markers in Gauteng in comparison to the Northern Cape, for instance, we will find that we are exposed to lots of pollutants in the air like sulfates, nitrate, phosphates, and these type of components that can actually be more harmful and actually put our overall genetic code even under more pressure. And, back in the day when I was still a student, there was a terminology that we made use of, and that was called a polymorph. So, a polymorph basically means that if we look at our genetic code, then we can go and analyze our DNA and we can physically see, yes, it's true, we have certain genes that we've inherited from our parents and our forefathers and so forth, and we, because we inherited, it's known as a polymorph. It's, let's call it a heterozygote. So I'm using an intense terminology, but basically what that means is that although we have it, does not necessarily mean that it's going to express. And there's certain things that can cause, put some pressure on our DNA, like external factors and so forth. And some of these external factors, if it puts so much stress on these polymorph genes that we've inherited, then yes, ultimately at the end of the day, it's going to lead to what we call a muted gene. So in other words, it gets activated and then expression happens. So it's either expression that you physically can see on your skin, or it can be an expression in terms of cancer and so forth. So yes, even though we can find certain genes and so forth that we've inherited, and we can look at the percentage, some of these genes can be silent up until the day that you die. But some of these genes can be triggered because of environmental extremities. And it can even be triggered by means of where you live in the world. Even whether you live south of the equator or whether you live north of the equator, lifestyle habits, medication that you drink, etc.
Dr. Judy, we spoke about environment and we're saying that this is the geographical setting, of course, inclusive of weather and so forth and so on. We're also talking about the diet that you're exposed to. I want to know what capacity or um, what and I suppose what I'm trying to grade is how deep or how much does the words we use play on our skin's health, right? Because another theory by Dr. Caroline Leaf, who is a world renowned clinical and research neuroscientist, is that the utterances of our mouth create our environment. And so, if we're talking about environment, do you believe that the words we say contribute? So, if I go around saying Shayla is going to look 20 for the next 20 years, how much of that statement will contribute to who I become?
You know what? We can even get a little bit biblical as well and say there's really power, there's life and death in the power of the tongue, and I believe that many years ago, and I cannot necessarily think of the exact theme. I watched a documentary on TV that also they were talking. There was a scientist that was talking to water. The scientist was physically talking to water, and then the
Yes.
scientist was talking to water and expressed love. And they froze the water, and then they look at how the crystals actually form when there was a love language to use, and then they used the same type of scenario by speaking something negative, and the way the crystals actually formed during the freezing process was had a little bit more of an aggressive undertone, a sadness type of undertone. And honestly, as a formulation scientist myself, I because I'm a very passionate person when I formulate products and formulate various ingredients out there, I do believe that if you formulate with love and passion, and you put ingredients together and ultimately put it in a bottle, then it's not just the fact that you've used your mind, your skill, and you used your hands, so the physical labor, but the fact that there was some passion and love associated with that actually creates a brand new scenario where it rubs off on people. It rubs off on your mental well-being. It rubs off on just general, how can I say, acceptance and inclusivity, if that makes sense. So I 100% believe that. I believe that in the power of suggestion. I believe in the power of the mind, and I also believe that we should. And this is a personal opinion, that what comes out of your mouth should rather be, words that speak life and not death.
Absolutely agree with you 110%. I believe that was a Japanese lecturer who conducted that study where he had two sets of bottles of water and he asked his students to speak good and fruitful things over the one set of bottles of water, and the next were afforded an opportunity to just speak negativity. And so I read up on that and I found that quite interesting. And I just appreciate that you brought that to the conversation this evening, Dr. Judey, who joins us. She is a leading biomedical scientist and the founder of Biomedical Emporium International. And she's here to discuss the transitions of the skin. We're specifically honing into pre and post menopause, looking at the effects of these two states on the largest organ, the skin. If you have questions, find us on WhatsApp. Send through your questions. We'd love to hear from you. So send through a voice note. +27634069126. A quick breather, and then we get back and we continue this conversation. It is 11 p.m. Central African time, and joining us is Dr. Judey Pretorius, a leading biomedical scientist and the founder of Biomedical Emporium International. Now, she asserts that true empowerment means equipping women with the knowledge about their changing bodies. Her mission is to help women understand biological and the biology behind menopause so that they can regain control over their health and self-image. We are extending the conversation for those who haven't really gotten there yet. And so this is in preps for the stages that are to come. But we're also including men into this conversation as well, and just looking at andropause, which is something we will look at towards the tail end of the conversation. Dr. Judey, we just ended off with the power of words and how these can alter our realities, and we've sort of just delved into that place. I want to come back to the application. It's one thing to speak, right? It's one thing to say, I'm going to have great skin, I'm going to have a healthy body, I have a healthy mind. But in that comes the practice of articulating that which you've said. And I want us to talk about supplements. Now, studies have shown that up to 30% of collagen is lost in the 5 years post-menopause. And I want to talk about these collagen products that you would find, these ingestible products. Listen, you're given all 1,200 supplements and you're told collagen boosters, collagen increasing pills, and. Do we take this pre-menopause, post-menopause? When do we introduce supplements for collagen into our skincare routine?
Okay, so people are not going to like what I have to say, but the process of anti-aging actually starts the day when you're born. And it's really important, when a little baby is born, parents buy skincare products, which is basically just a vitamin E cream after the baby bathe and maybe a nappy cream and so forth. And we definitely need more ingredients than that. We need vitamin B, we need vitamin C, we need even a little bit of vitamin A and so forth, and vitamin B5, for instance. So there are so many things that we need to expose our skin to from the day that we are born, because remember, we don't have immunity and we are exposed to our new environment. The amniotic fluid and being in your mother's womb, that's the perfect place to be for human skin and to be healthy. But now that you're born, that's actually when anti-aging has to start. What's important as well, as a young child, we are taught that, listen, as we grow up, brush your teeth in the morning and in the evening. And we kind of rebel against that fact when we are 4 years and 5 years and maybe even 6 years old. But ultimately, after that, then we don't fight our parents or our guardians anymore. It's a natural thing it's a natural habit. And when it comes to human skin and treating human skin, we should kind of have the same approach. Teach our children to take care of their skin when they're still very young. And what I mean by that, just as you and I agree that maybe a twice a day brushing your teeth routine is necessary, the same happens with the human skin. The human skin is an alive organ, and it requires to be fed. It requires nutrition, both in the morning and in the evening. Very, very critical. And even for children, doesn't matter. So if we look at the human skin microscopically, we will find that if I touch my skin right now, I'm touching the outer layer of my skin. But slightly deeper into my skin, I have a middle layer called the dermis. And inside that dermis is where my collagen and elastin fibers are. And this actually constitutes and helps my skin with elasticity. In other words, if I pinch my skin right now, it should go back to its original state. So I don't want it to stay in a pinched position. So there are not only skincare products that you can apply that makes a huge difference, but also oral supplements. But let's talk about skincare ingredients. The human skin, you and I, are born with an ingredient called hyaluronic acid. We read about this ingredient a lot online. We see it on digital marketing. So us humans, we're not unknown to the ingredient hyaluronic acid. But the problem is hyaluronic acid likes to kind of linger in between these collagen and elastin fibers. But if you and I lose 30% of these collagen and elastin fibers, where exactly is this ingredient going to linger? How is it going to be retained in the human skin? And that's why we need to find ingredients that's going to help stimulate new collagen and elastin fibers. So if we replenish our skin from a very young age, with hyaluronic acid and ingredients like vitamin E and vitamin C, vitamin B3 and vitamin B5, for instance, then we're going to teach our skin to stimulate and synthesize hyaluronic acid and collagen and elastin fibers by itself. And if you're especially a female, this is very, very important because eventually, when we go through menopause, we start to see the turkey neck waddle, the droopiness, the
Yeah.
hoodedness of the eyelids, and so forth. And even the aging of our hands become much more defined and pronounced. So ingredients twice a day play a huge, huge role. Then we're talking oral supplementation. This is also important, but what I like to tell people, try to look for oral supplementation that's not 10 capsules and tablets that you have to drink per day. That's not necessary. You can find a supplement that contains all the vitamins and minerals that you need for the day, as well as a mixture with collagen powder in there, mixed with maybe a good pre and probiotic. And this is something that you can take every single day, and you will actually find that it is not necessary to take so many capsules every day. A general powder and supplement that contains vitamins and minerals, collagen, and a pre and probiotic, that's really, in my opinion, all you need. And I know I'm going to have people like personal trainers and dietitians also say, no, Dr. Judy, we're listening to what you say. I believe in having a general healthy lifestyle and some moderate exercises as well. But a supplement like this is not only good for your skin, but it can be helpful for, your bone and cartilage and these type of things as well.
And Dr. Judy, these prebiotics, probiotics, collagen supplements, can they not be found in our foods? Because I'm now thinking to myself, and perhaps I have a mindset that needs to be reframed, is that when I become dependent on supplements, without this extra activity that happens outside my body isn't able to create these hyaluronic acids, these prebiotics, these probiotics, collagen for that matter, because I'm introducing an aid prematurely. Can these not be found in food? And if so, is it better to get supplements or to ingest certain kinds of nutrition so as to be able to assist your body in creating these particular kinds of acids and minerals and vitamins?
Well, it's true, and I do believe that these supplements can be found in food, and many people will agree with me. I think the big problem comes on, and I think there was a documentary also where they said, let's go see who are the people who live the longest on the planet, and what groups of people in the world actually live the longest, and you have individuals like Janine Colment, who comes from France, who actually lived to the age of 122. Then you have certain villages in Italy also where people live very, very long lives. And there are so many things that denote to that. It's not only the fact that, when they eat as a family, they eat organic type of foods, and it's kind of a Mediterranean lifestyle and so forth. And these people live long, and the way they live, and the fact that they also share their food with love and conversation and a camaraderie, if you will, helps them with a good anti-aging kind of approach. But then we have the flip side of that, and it's our lives, our lives that are busy. We are busy already from very early in the morning. We are stressed, and we have so many things to do. The to-do list never stops, you know. And I've even heard now in August that people say, "Oh, it's the wrong time of the year. It's the second half of the year. Projects need to be finished." So stress and very, very busy lifestyles really make for creates new stressors, and then ultimately we refrain from eating healthy, and we don't necessarily pursue that much of a healthy lifestyle purely because of our general modernization and our general day-to-day, let's call it city life approach, if you will.
Yeah.
And you know, we it's true, you find healthy foods out there that you can eat every day, but sometimes it's not that realistic for everybody. And then I say, okay, let's go have a look at supplements. And one can say, oh, Dr. Judy, but it comes from a lab. Is it really healthy? Is it really the same? And I would say yes. And the reason why I say yes is because we have so many good scientists out there, and they have a look at some of the ingredients, let's call it on a molecular level, on an organic level, chemical level, and they see, if they look at this chemical ingredient, a chemical ingredient of vitamins, for instance, of vitamin E and vitamin C and vitamin D, for instance, you can physically go make it in a lab, and you can make it as close as possible. And I say close as possible to what humans produce and to what humans need. And this can be produced and compiled quantitatively and qualitatively. So we can prove quality and we can prove the quantity. Because, for instance, you and I know that it's probably very healthy to take in about 2,000 international units of vitamin D every single day. But I don't necessarily stand out in the sun for hours and hours to produce natural vitamin D every day, because I work in an
Yeah.
office, I work in a lab, and I
Mm.
mean, for instance, you kind of working night shift. You know, you don't see the sun that much, so perhaps you have a vitamin D deficiency, and that's why it is important that we have the opportunity and the resources to call on supplements that we know try to mimic the human body as much as we possibly can. And the only thing that I would like to add to that, and this is very important, is that supplements and skincare products, cosmetics, is not really a very regulated industry. So it means you have people that really manufacture products in a clinical accredited laboratory with certain statutory authorities. It's ISO accredited and certified and these type of thing. But then you also have people who make these supplements and cosmetic products literally in their garage or kitchen, and they apply labels on their products. And then these two type of people, the one that comply and the one that don't comply with statutory guidelines and so forth, actually end up competing with each other. And that's why the end consumer, when they purchase either cosmetic products or natural supplements, have been disappointed before, because they've paid money but they did not necessarily see that biological and therapeutic results.
Yeah.
And this is purely because of the fact that we don't really always know where it comes from, who made it, who manufactured it, does it comply to statutory guidelines and so forth. So the only thing that I will definitely say to people is to try and do investigation um, on the address and the individuals, the company who make a particular product, and first see if you agree that it's compliant or not before you spend a lot of money and it doesn't work and you just get frustrated.
The voice there of Dr. Judey Pretorius, leading biomedical scientist and the founder of Biomedical Emporium International. It is 15 minutes after 11 p.m. Central African time. Dr. Judey, we are coming towards the tail end of our conversation, and a few questions are coming your way from our audience. We're going to take a quick breather, and when we get back, we will address those questions.
African Diaries with Shayla Ndikumana.
If you've just joined us 17 minutes after 11 p.m. Central African time, we are still in conversation with Dr. Judey Pretorius, who is a leading biomedical scientist and the founder of Biomedical Emporium International. The conversation essentially is just looking at the transitional stages of your skin. This is the biggest organ you carry. This is one of the leading, I suppose, and this is just by mere virtue of observation rather, leading qualities when it comes to beauty. In women, we look at skin. And so we're trying to find out how we can best take care of our skin. Dr. Judey, I did say that there were a few questions that have come in from our listeners, and they want to know a few things. I want to start off with the very first question that is looking at epidermis management, and a question coming in here from Nursing Care Continues asks, how much does genetics and lifestyle play in the role of epidermis management?
Well, genetics, like what we've indicated, does play a role. But one of the things I actually love about the skincare industry is that certain skin concerns can be fairly manipulated. And I am saying that with a positive, how can I say, extrusion.
Yeah.
Because many concerns, and I'm going to give an example with acne, for instance, is yes, perhaps my mother had acne when she was a teenager, and now I'm a teenager. Now I also have acne, but perhaps when she was a teenager, there wasn't that much attention given to products that contain certain ingredients that really control acne properly. And I'm going to give a definition of acne. If I struggle with acne, I typically have a lot of oiliness on my skin. So in other words, I produce a lot of sebum. And because I produce a lot of sebum, it creates an environment for a bacteria to grow. And the name of the bacteria is Cuticum bacterium acnes. And then there's inflammation, so it's sore and it's sensitive and it's red, and also my skin's pH starts to change. So the human skin is also known as an acid mantle, so it likes to be in more acidic environment than a neutral and alkaline environment. So now that I'm a teenager, for instance, I know these things. I know that we deal with sebum production. I know we're dealing with inflammation. I know we're dealing with a fluctuation in skin pH and so forth. And I know we're dealing with bacteria. Now I can start putting in ingredients like salicylic acid that controls sebum production and inflammation, and retinol, vitamin A, that also controls sebum production. Even bacteriostatically effective tea tree to terminate, bacteria, for instance, and azelaic acid that address the redness. And all of this I can balance, with the low pH levels and between 5 to 5.5, and I can give it to a teenager, and then I can actually see, but I really am getting a nice breakthrough in terms of acne. So yes, we can definitely tick the box by saying genetics plays a role. But now, because of how far we've moved forward in terms of technology and what we know as scientists, there are really things that we can do. And I'm saying non-scripted things that we can do. We don't always have to run to a doctor to get a script for corticosteroids and these type of things. We can find good ingredients, good cosmetic ingredients that we can apply on our skin every single day to control things that we are exposed to. And early on, we said environment as well. Sometimes you and I cannot help where we live. We cannot we live where we work.
Yeah.
And so I have to stay in Gauteng, but I'm also living in a province where the pollution is probably the worst in the country. But this is where I work. This is where I take care of my family. But because I know that there's pollution and there's things in the environment that's not so great for my skin. I mean, even the water that I have to wash my face with, that I have to bathe and shower in, that's not even that clean anymore, you know. So there are things that I can incorporate in my day-to-day life in terms of skincare that I apply on my skin that really, protects my skin against spontaneous oxidative stressors and help me supplement new microbiotic on my skin and reduce inflammation and these type of things. And if I'm just disciplined with a twice a day skincare routine, I can manipulate genetics and I can manipulate the environment quite well.
Another question from Nursing Care Continues, who's also Sihle Mantini, says, what emerging trends such as IV drops are effective or not, and what should people be aware of when it comes to these kinds of offerings?
I honestly do believe that IV treatments has a very good place. Unfortunately, it did get a bad reputation, especially here in South Africa, where IV treatments like the intravenous applications of certain vitamins and minerals, are done by unqualified people, and so forth. So it did get a bad reputation. But if you again go look at some of the vitamins and minerals in some of these IV treatments that are available, I mean, it has the whole scope of vitamins and minerals that you need. And where we actually saw that it had a very, very powerful effect was during COVID. Many COVID patients who really had bad COVID, especially the Delta variant was a very, very bad variant. People got very sick and they ended up in intensive care wards and so forth. They were exposed to some of these very high quality vitamin and mineral IV treatment modalities. And it was quite surprising to see how it actually built up their systemic immunity. And after that, I would definitely say that IV treatments are important, not only just for your systemic health, but also for the health of your skin. It's not necessarily something that you have to do every day or even weekly, but if people can embark on such treatments at least monthly and they do it at a qualified individuals, they do it with sterile containing products and so forth, I'm actually all for it.
Second last question coming in saying, will skin lifts or Botox help against anti-aging? Are they truly effective? Is the question.
Well, to answer that question, and as I'm sitting here, I make use of all treatment modalities. So I have a healthy skin, and I like to sit and it's good that we have a discussion this late in the evening because I don't have any makeup on my skin. I'm actually gonna, get ready for bed after
Yeah.
this. But I try to do whatever I can to keep my skin healthy and young, and that includes Botox. So let's just call it botulinum toxin injection because there are other trademarks out there. But botulinum toxin injections are typically injections that's given to you, here in the globular lines and the forehead lines, and even, the crow's feet, so the laughing lines that we have, and it helps to soften these lines and wrinkles. And the reason why I do encourage that is purely because of the fact that we live longer. It's not a surprise that people live longer. maybe 20, 30 years ago, when someone lived to the age of 100 and so forth, it made front page news in the local newspaper. But if somebody lives to the age of 100 now, it doesn't even probably make the local newspaper news anymore, because people live longer. And purely because of the fact that if you and I were to take our ID card or our passport out and we look at our pictures, then 80% of that picture that we're looking at is your skin. So I would say do what you need to do to keep your skin healthy and young. And I personally do go for botulinum toxin injections. It is advised by medical doctors that you can go every 3 months, but personally, I prefer not to go every 3 months. I only go twice a year. And the reason why I do that is because the humans start to build up antibodies against botulinum toxins, and then eventually you pay a lot of money and you go for these injections and it just doesn't work anymore. And I like the fact that if I go twice a year, it always works. It always works. So it's definitely an anti-aging treatment modality, along with good, healthy skincare. Be open-minded. Don't be scared of these type of treatments and protocols. There are so many things that we can do, non-invasive, non-surgical, that really makes a remarkable difference. And I'd like to say that the human skin is such a public organ. It's an organ that plays a role. If it's healthy, then we exude confidence. It helps to play a role in our self-confidence. But if our skin is unhealthy and we struggle with pigmentation and deep lines and wrinkles and sagging and acne and so forth, then it impacts our self-esteem. And that's why I say do what you need to do to make you feel better about yourself.
Dr. Judey, questions came in, and as you continue to answer, more people have questions. And so towards the end of the conversation, we are definitely going to ask where we can get a hold of you for these questions. A quick yes or no before I get into the very last. Would you recommend cutinous treatment over IV drops? Yes, no?
I would probably yes, because of the immediate systemic absorption. It's I like to tell people you always have to go and look at how ingredients are absorbed and adsorbed. So twice. So if we have better systemic absorption, the subcutaneous version would probably be the big plus.
And then the second last question, again, I'm saying this because questions are flowing in. One is asking, how can one get rid of dry red cheeks?
Dry red cheeks should not be underestimated, because it can also denote to a skin condition such as rosacea. Now, rosacea is typically a skin condition where the cheeks and so forth is red. It's more something that's prevalent amongst adults, so you don't really you struggle with rosacea as a child. And this can also be because of you're exposed to things that cause inflammation. And that can be so many things. That can be your environment. That can be the food that you eat. That can be medication that you drink. That can be even cosmetic products that you apply on your skin. So one of the things that I would like to tell people, work on the rule of elimination. Something that causes the skin to be red and dry and sensitive. And the first and foremost thing, let's start with skincare. Don't use skincare products that contain colorants, fragrances, or any dyes. Try to get your hands on skincare products that says it's pH balanced, because this is very important. The human skin is an acid mantle and require more acidic type of products. Then also have a look at the type of medication that you drink, because certain medication like corticosteroids, for instance, antiretrovirals, even certain antibiotics, anti-malarial type of medication and so forth, can put so much strain on our liver enzymes that ultimately we're going to struggle with redness and dryness on our skin as well. Again, the environment plays a role. Don't be surprised that you struggle more with redness during the winter conditions in comparison to the summer conditions, because we lose much more moisture during the winter, up to 300 to 400 milliliters of water per day through our skin during the winter in comparison to the summer. So the type of skincare products that we need to use during the winter should be much more rich, should be much more occluding, and higher in viscosity as well.
And last question for the evening, Dr. Judey. Race and ethnic differences, right? You will see from time to time people mentioning that different races perhaps use different skin routines in order to maintain their skin. And of course, the big difference between all the various races is melanin production and distribution. What's your take on that? Do different races need different skin routines? Is that a necessity?
Well, I can tell you, in the labs where I work, we actually culture skin. We culture skin for research and development purposes. And there's 6 different skin types and tones that people get. We refer to Fitzpatrick 1 to Fitzpatrick 6. So Fitzpatrick 1 is a very fair skin tone and type, like a Scandinavian Irish undertone, and then Fitzpatrick 6 is a much more darker skin tone and type. And why this is important is how the human skin burns in the sun. So in other words, a very fair Fitzpatrick 1 skin tone and type, if they burn in the sun, it's going to be red. They're never ever going to have a tanned experience. In comparison to the Fitzpatrick 6, if they burn in the sun, they'll never burn red, but they have an immediate tan, which means that the skin is slightly more robust because of the melanin to protect the skin against, things like skin cancer and so forth, and sensitivity, etc., etc. And it is true, darker skin types actually age much better in comparison to fairer skin tone and types. However, that is the only thing. Whether you're a Fitzpatrick 1 skin tone and type or a Fitzpatrick 6 skin tone and type, I'm telling you categorically and explicitly this evening that everybody needs the same vitamins and minerals to be exposed to their skin. Every single skin tone needs hyaluronic acid, needs retinol, needs niacinamide, which is your vitamin B3, needs vitamin B5, needs vitamin C, even needs azelaic acid, needs vitamin D. We all think we live in the sun, we live in Africa, we're exposed to the sun. We don't need vitamin D. Trust me, you'll be surprised how many people who live on this continent actually struggle with a vitamin D deficiency. It is shocking. It's really, really shocking. So the human skin requires nutrition every single day, whether you are a very fair skin tone and type or whether you're a very dark skin tone and type. This really doesn't matter. If you are a fair skin tone and type or a dark skin tone and type, your skin will still be known as an acid mantle. So if I measure the pH of your skin, I physically want to see that the pH should be between 5 to 5.5. If it's anything greater than that, then we're going to start seeing concerns. And many people think that darker skin types don't struggle with things like rosacea. They do. They do. It's just you don't see it that quickly, but they do. So all these skin concerns that you think would be more prominent amongst fairer skin tones and type, I'm telling you, darker skin tones and types have the same thing. Even when it comes to skin cancer, melanoma, basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, actinic keratosis, all of these type of things actually takes place through all these skin tones and types. But the basic rule of thumb is stay away from skincare that contains fragrances and dyes and that are not pH balanced, because all of these things, whether you are a light skin type or a dark skin type, is going to hurt your skin, and after a few years you're going to start seeing negative effects.
Sure. Dr. Judey, I'll be honest, I do think we need a part 2 and 3 of this particular conversation, because I'm thinking about just the context of vitamin D And my understanding is that between UVB and UVA, there's a particular ray that affords you that vitamin or access to that vitamin's creation in your body versus the other that burns your skin. And then that introduces the context of sunscreen. So I do think we need to have you again on the show. But for now, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
The voice of Dr. Judey Pretorius, a leading biomedical scientist and the founder of Biomedical Emporium International. And that was a conversation, I suppose, part one of transition of skins, right? Through the different stages and the different ages. This is your biggest organ, okay? Not just your face. I've noticed that the care we apply is just for the circumference of the face, where your facial features are. That's where you're taking care of the skin. You forget their ears, you forget their neck. I am talking about the entire cluster, okay? From the tip of your head to the soles on your feet. There is a nourishing guide that we ought to follow when it comes to skin care. And so if you do have one and you're saying, Shayla, listen, I want to tell you what I do. And I've been glistening in the twilight. Okay, I've been glowing in the moonlight. Find us on WhatsApp, +27 6340 9126 37 after 11 p.m. Central African Time.
African Diaries, weekdays, 10 till midnight.